UCF has hired Will Johnson as its next coach, but is he the game changer that Scott Frost and Alex Grinch need?
You are Locked On UCF, your daily podcast on the UCF Knights, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on into the Locked On UCF, your daily UCF podcast. I'm your host, Mike G. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of every day. Locked On is the #1 podcast network. Turn us on, turn us up, we'll turn it out. I'm here with my good friend James Duncan to talk a little UCF football here on a Thursday afternoon. We're coming at you guys live today to talk about UCF's latest hire, Will Johnson. And then, look, man, as the portal approaches, we're going to talk QB a lot. So if you don't hear QB talk, tough. You're going to have to listen to QB talk. It's going to be a fun conversation. And then I think this is going to be the most important spring of Frost Scott's tenure here at UCF. But we're going to talk about what that spring potentially looks like. Let's start at the top here. James, UCF hires Will Johnson to come in at defensive backs coach, or he's going to coach corners, I believe. Talk to me about Will Johnson in this hire here, man. Before we started recording, you had your feelings about Will Johnson. We knew that a staff shakeup was going to come. A little bit of a staff shakeup was going to come here. They did well. They did well on defense, and so it and I would say that the DBs were one of the better performing groups on the team.
Yeah, absolutely. They were definitely one of the top performing units on the team, and a very turnover heavy producing unit. We did really well against pass, in pass coverage last year. So definitely a top performing unit. And when your coaches do well, when your players do well, they move to bigger places that are going to pay them more. That's just how it is now and has been for a while. Brandon Harris, obviously, I wish him the best of luck at the University of Florida. I think he'll do well there. Obviously they're in a tough situation too, as well as the previous school that he was going to, which was FSU. So he made his little way around the block pretty quick there. But I'm happy for Brandon Harris. Will Johnson is to me a phenomenal hire. I think it's really good to grab someone that's not necessarily too far removed from the game. Will Johnson played at USC, was a very talented corner, goes to North Dakota, and is a standout coach. He's a young coach, but from what I've heard and some of the team's anecdotal stories around him, they say that the players would run through a wall for this kind of coach. And that's exactly what you want. You want a relationship coach. You want a guy that's going to get someone motivated. And the closer in age that you are to the people that you're coaching, the more you can relate to them. Because as much as people don't like to admit it, and as much as some older coaches might not like to admit it, sometimes you grow out of style with the game. And the game is constantly changing. People are getting more athletic. People are trying new things and new tactics. And it's really important that you're staying on top of what's happening in college football and professional football. So I think it's a great hire. He was very successful at North Dakota State. He went to the 2024 FCS championship in 2025. They allowed less than 149 yards through the air per game, which was the third in all of FCS. So you're taking someone that's successful but on the rise rather than someone that has been successful and is on a decline. I think that's a little bit of a change in this coaching staff that you will have noticed from the last coaching staff that hired people that might have seen the highest highs, but are making their way down in college football rather than up.
Johnson takes over for Brandon Harris, who left UCF for John Summerall at Florida. I'm really starting to dislike John Summerall. I'm not going to lie. This guy is a pain in my butt this month. But look, he not only is not that remote, he played his ball at Oklahoma, did Will Johnson. He earned all Big 12 honorable mentions during his playing days there. He started 17 of his 30 career games for the Sooners, totaling 120 tackles, 5 tackles for a loss, 2 interceptions, and 8 pass breakups. I do think it's important to have a guy who is connected at least somewhat to what the game is today. So I agree with you there 100%. Like, go out, get guys who understand what college football is today, that can relate to kids, and that can potentially do very well for you on the recruiting trail. This matters. You need to be able to speak these kids' language these days. And if you're Scott Frost, you're going to have to make some really important, like, portal pitches, I think, to get this thing right. So it's going to be really, really important for Scott Frost to continue to make these kinds of hires. Last word on Will Johnson, man. Like, do you see him advancing this group? Because, like I said, they played well last year.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily as much as you're hoping for advancement. Rather, you're just hoping that the skill level and the strategy of the group stays stagnant. I mean, obviously, you want to see increase year after year, but with a coaching change, you have to expect that there's going to be some changes. I don't necessarily think you're going to see a change in scheme because that would be, Grinch's job. But you might see, changes in techniques. I know some cornerback coaches like to tape boxing gloves around their guys to get them to reduce holding calls and PIs and those kind of things. Some guys, some DB coaches want their guys to be free and try and get after the ball. Especially when you have so many playmaking corners like Bellamy, like Antoine Jackson, some of our other DBs. You sometimes want to let them run free and let them use their hands. But you got to be careful on those calls. So I'm interested to see how he does. Obviously that's something that we'll monitor come spring practice and we'll be on top of it and we'll note everything here. Right, Mike?
Yeah, indeed. Look, the portal is coming. It opens in early January, and UCF is going to be in the market for some QBs. How many QBs do they take, though, James? We'll talk about that next, right here on Locked On UCF. This episode of Locked On UCF is brought to you by our friends at Rocket Money. Ever feel like your money just disappears each month? It happens fast. A few subscriptions here, an impulse buy there, and suddenly the numbers in your bank account don't match the numbers in your head. Rocket Money helps you get clarity, track every dollar, and stay in control of your finances, because managing your money shouldn't feel like a second job. Rocket Money does the heavy lifting for you so you can save more and stress less. Take control of your finances and cancel your unwanted subscriptions with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Rocketmoney.com. They're helping you save every single penny. How many QBs will UCF take in the portal here? I think Cam Fancher is maybe staying. Taven's gone. Jacurri's gone. Davi's staying. Right? Like, well, how many QBs? Like, you got to rebuild this QB room if you're Scott Frost. Cam Fancher won the job. Taven Jackson played most of the snaps. I don't think either one of those is the guy for 2026. Or was going to be the guy for 2026. So,
I think you're absolutely right. I don't think either of those guys are going to be the guy for 2026. I've seen some fan speculation on, maybe Cam is the perfect Band-Aid quarterback for you to let these guys develop and go out and get an offensive line and this and this and that. Maybe, but from what I'm hearing, the UCF staff is really trying to shave down where they can in terms of money.
Okay.
And put in money in the pool for a QB and an offensive line.
Okay. Wait. So pause there. Shave down means that you either you got some bad investments or you are, you committed some money in some places where maybe that money wasn't well spent. And so some of the, I warn everybody about this. Like, when you see guys walking out the door, sometimes they're letting them walk because, in recruiting, money was promised that there wasn't a good ROI there. And Matt Rule said this a few years ago. He said, man, to get a good QB in the portal, you got to spend $1 million. And that was a couple of years ago. Now you got to spend $2 or $3 million to get a good QB in the portal. It feels like. Is UCF prepared to drop a whole guap on a QB from the 20.5? Terry Mahajer said that they're fully funded 20.5. If you're Scott Frost, are you going to the money people and saying, look, man, I know we got 20, which was really 18 because 2.5 of that is going to scholarships for the Olympic sports. So I know we got 18, but I need $2 million to go get my QB next year.
I don't know if UCF is in the 2 million range for a QB. If I'm honest, I mean, they could be. I'm relatively, I guess, NIL changes a lot over, 1 year, couple months. UCF was not in the market even for a $1 million QB a year ago. That's just that they went out, they got Taven Jackson. They got an unproven Power 5 backup in Taven Jackson. They went out and got Cam Fancher, an experienced G5 starter with not a phenomenal track record. They went out and got Davi Belfort. So they went out and got a bunch of QBs, but it didn't pan out. None of them did. And it's important that with QB, you don't want to put all of your eggs in one basket, maybe, but you certainly don't want to put them into like 4 baskets. So you got to find that balance. And this is why, we get into this discussion of how many portal QBs do you want to take? I think 2 is your sweet spot. I think 2 is your sweet spot if Cam or Davi decides to leave. If one of those 2 decides that they want to get in the portal, and there's discussions right now, I think that the main discussion with Cam is he going to get his medical waiver granted? And the discussion with Davi is, does Davi see a route to playing time? Davi's an athlete. He reminds me very much of like a young Ja'Cory Brown.
Okay.
And he's a phenomenal athlete. And I think that he'd be really successful in a system that works towards his strengths. But his strength at this point in his career is in his arm. And you need an arm to play quarterback in this system. So they're going to go out and get a QB with an arm. I've seen some feelers out there for guys that they might want to touch on, and there's all of these theories, but guys, you're not going to know until the second when things become official.
Does Scott Frost need a dual threat? Does this guy have to be? He's got to be a dual threat.
He's got to be. There's no such thing as a pocket passing UCF quarterback.
Okay. All right. Because I want to make it clear that, there are some coaches out there that feel that they can mold their system around either a pocket passer or dual threat QB. Gus tried to do this and failed miserably. Like I saw him do this at 2 schools, thinking that he could turn make a pocket passer successful in his system. When, look, man, I think his system needs Cam Newton. Personally, I think his system needs Cam Newton to be successful. But Scott Frost's system seems a little bit more pliable, though. Right? It's not that they don't want their QB to pass from the pocket. We saw Taven sit back there and make some good deep passes at times this year. Maybe you want to see that versus better competition this upcoming season, but I will stand on this. They may not want to spend $2 million on a QB, but if you want to compete next year, you may have to. If your guy is out there, I would say don't be afraid to spend it. Now, there's rumors that USF's Byron Brown, he's got 1 year left. He could hop in the portal. What's the strategy you think here? Do you go to the portal looking for a 2-year starter, or if you're Scott Frost, do you just need a bridge guy while you get a guy like Rocco Marriott ready to start? Byron Brown, again, he's one of only a few QBs in the last 20 years to pass for 3,000 and run for 1,000 yards. He's right there in the state of Florida. You bring a guy like in with 1 year left to play, he balls out, you move your program forward, right? He gets to the Power 4, and then you get your freshman stud ready to be the guy in 2027, maybe.
Mike, I think you just described the ideal scenario for any man.
You gotta go find a dude.
I think the only question mark is the guy's a former Bull, but I think that people would put that aside if he was from USF and he came here and he was guaranteed to ball out. I think Byron Brown is a phenomenal quarterback, and I think that he would do very well in Scott's system. Do I think that there's legs to him coming here? I don't know. I mean,
no, I don't think so. I don't think so. But I'm saying, I use him as an example, though, to say, do you get a quarterback in that mold that is super athletic, that can throw the football, but also has 1 year left, so you don't have to overhaul everything. You just need a guy to get you to the guy that you're going to develop from high school. We thought that might be Kane Archer. Then they brought Rocco Marriott in, and now Kane's out. And I mean, I don't know, man. I think you're going to need to go get multiple guys here because you need a guy and a backup. I would not want to be in a place where I'm throwing a true freshman out there. And maybe that's why they went and got Rocco Marriott, because they felt like, hey, if we have to turn to a true freshman this year, this is a guy we can get ready by midseason to be the guy.
You definitely got to go get two. Unless you end up keeping Cam and he ends up being like that veteran backup that if you have to put in a pinch, he knows the system. He's played enough football to where he's comfortable. I don't necessarily mind that. I think keeping Davi puts the entire QB room in a very interesting position, because then you're saying, hey, we believe that this kid's arm is going to get better. And we believe that in the future, he is going to, have some sort of accuracy or power behind this arm. And now you create a lot of competition between him and Rocco about who's that QB3 guy. I'm not necessarily sure what that does for the program. I think you need to go get a QB that you're comfortable spending $1 million, maybe 1.2 plus on.
Okay, 1.2 you think is the range?
All right. And then you need a $400,000 to $500,000 QB. So, like I said, it's between putting all of your eggs in one basket or putting them into two. I think putting them into two is safer. And if you go get a Band-Aid QB, then you're not necessarily, counting yourself out of a great season from a quarterback. I think there's definitely options out there of guys that can be paid just over $1 million. And, those guys, there are tons of phenomenal options. It's just about getting them to come here. And UCF has to be willing to shell out that amount of money for a Band-Aid quarterback.
Yeah, look, on yesterday's show, we went over a letter that Terry Mohajer put out to the UCF business community. And this is why I think this is so important. You have the $18 million that you control, but you need third-party NIL opportunities for your student athletes that are going to come from the community that makes sense, that you can get through the clearinghouse to be able to put that extra sauce. So maybe you give him 1.2 from rev share, but you can find him an $800,000 deal from a UCF business, or Orlando business. And that's why the letter made so much sense. You need your community to get involved in this thing if you're going to be successful, if you're UCF. So look, this spring is going to be really important. You got to have the guys you need on roster, James. But is this the most important spring in Scott Frost's tenure coming up? I think it might be. We'll talk about that next, right here on Locked On UCF. The holiday season is right around the corner, and that means it's time to get your home ready. Whether you need more seating for guests, cozy new linens, or fun serveware for holiday hosting, Wayfair's Black Friday sale is here to make your space shine. And the best part, you don't have to wait. Wayfair's Black Friday deals are happening all month long with up to 70% off everything from sofas to spatulas. The best part, I couldn't believe how fast everything shipped just in time for the holidays. If you've ever hosted family for the holidays, you know just how much a few new touches can make to a space. Wayfair makes that so easy. Don't miss out on early Black Friday deals. Head to wayfair.com now to shop Wayfair's Black Friday sale for up to 70% off. That's wayfair.com. Sale ends December 7th. James, let's talk about this spring. Is Scott Frost going to run a true spring game? Are we going to be able to see these portal QBs on display here this spring? Spring games are losing their importance in a lot of coaches' minds. A lot of coaches feel like it's a glorified practice. You don't gain a lot from it. You can't really show anything. But I think that they are still important in a lot of ways. Some coaches that I've covered have floated the idea of, scrimmaging against like an FCS school and then donating the proceeds to charity, which I love. Anything with helping the less fortunate, I'm all for. And there have been some other ideas about how to make these games relevant again. Talk to me, man, about how does this spring go for Scott Frost where it's meaningful? I want a spring game. I want a spring game. And I will be in Orlando for a spring game, man. I will come down. I will cover it. I'll be in the press box. I will do what it takes to be there. But I think this is a good chance you're not going to put anything on tape that's going to compromise you in the fall. But certainly the showcase, I think, still is important to the core of what college football is.
Yeah, I think one of the main reasons that in the past couple of years that the spring game has gotten less popular is because they don't want to show who their best players are, because that other, window of transferring was there. And so if they put on really good tape and they're at some, other school, some other school sees it, they get in the portal, they go to a bigger school, they get paid more. And so that's why I like the one window of transferring, because it kind of eliminates that a little bit. I don't think that Scott Frost is one of those guys that's going to have just like this big, this like luxurious spring game that Gus used to throw. It was like a whole big event, and the Knights versus Knots, and having the guys in different jerseys and doing, mini games and all this kind of stuff to get the fans involved. I don't think you see that from Scott. I think you see something that's more production and more like, process based versus putting on a production. He wants just people to see what the process of practice is like. And so this past spring, he had open practices for the fans. The fans could go see if they were really like that. It was in the stadium. You could go see. But now that the stadium's getting worked on, so I don't know what I don't know if they're going to be able to work in the stadium or whether they're going to need to be in a practice field or something like that. But I'm not really sure what you see this spring. I think there's a lot of questions in the air because of the construction on the stadium, as well as, Scott Frost policies. This is also Scott's like first real spring where he's spent an entire season, and now he's like moving into his recruiting class of, starting to recruit 2027 guys and, looking at portal and all that. So I just think that everything's going to be kind of a mess for Scott. I don't know necessarily if he's going to have a full spring game.
Yeah, look, I'm in favor. Keep guys healthy, but also, your quarterbacks can't get hit anyway, so you're not worried about hurting the quarterback. But show UCF fans what they're in for. You go out and if you make a splash in the portal at QB, show that guy off in the spring, man. And if you want businesses to get excited about making NIL deals with your athletes, I think that the spring game is potentially something where you get it sponsored, man. You give these businesses access and use your spring game for that, right? To get them into, closer to the program so that they understand what it is that they're funding. It's not look, and you can, I want you to weigh in on this as somebody who is more qualified to speak on it than I am. And I'm going to use another Big 12 school as in my example. Kenny Dillingham went on this long rant, I don't know if you saw it, about how Tempe businesses need to just name burgers after ASU players. And, we need you. The message, absolutely, they do need those businesses. Unfortunately for Kenny, nobody gives a crap about ASU football in Phoenix, man. I'm telling you, true story. Back in 2018, I have a friend who was a Michigan State grad, and she was in town. I lived in, for those of you who are just following the show, I lived in Phoenix for 8 years. And she said, "Hey, Michigan State is playing ASU." Michigan State was like the number 12 team in the country. I was like, "Oh, number 12 team in the country is coming in here." I had been in Phoenix for about 7 years at this point, and I was like, I've never been to an ASU game, but it's not a big deal around here, which is why I never gone. And I'm a Southern football guy, so I was like, eh. Anyway, she came to town, she bought tickets, and we went to the game. James, when I tell you this was the most god awful football experience I've ever had. They have this chant where every time they get a first down, they go 1, 2, 3, first down, B word. So I got a 19-year-old screaming the B word in my ear like half the game. And then Michigan State player goes down on the field. And he's been down for like 2 minutes. Most fans know that while a player has been down on the field for 2 minutes, we're not breaking out into chants. We're not cheering. It's like, let's just wait and see if he's okay. There was a guy in the stands next to me. This is at an ASU game now. And he was like, doing ASU chants. I was like, yeah, I could. My inner monologue came out. And I was like, this is completely classless. And the guy's like, we're not cheering him being hurt. And I'm like, yes, professor, I know that. However, most people have respect for the player who's down on the field while he's hurt, man. You're not breaking out into school chants during that time. Their culture is atrocious. And then 20 minutes before they play the number 12 team, the stands are empty. I had posted on Facebook. I was like, where are all the fans? They're like, chill, Mike. They're out on Mill Ave. And I'm like, there's a football game going on, man. Come on. It's 20 minutes before the game. That town has 4 professional sports teams. 4. And nobody, I'm telling you, and Phoenix is a city on its own without ASU. It almost felt like the university wasn't even there. Orlando is a great city. I have been for bowl games. I have been for Disney World. I've been for a lot of stuff here. If you're Scott Frost, how do you make enough of a connection with a city that is so huge and has so much industry that people feel invested in UCF football, man? Do you understand what I'm asking you? Like,
yeah,
go out and make that connection with the community, the business community.
Well, the good thing is that it's the only football team in town. So they branded as Orlando's hometown team is UCF. Unfortunately, it's just enough out of the central Orlando area to where it's kind of a pain in the butt to go get to some of these games. It's actually closer to a little town next to it called Oviedo, but it's still technically in the Orlando area. UCF is big enough to have its own zip code, and it's a massive school. And so I think that over time, the school has a very well-known hospitality college. It's actually number 1 in the world. And I think over time, there needs to be some sort of major, because UCF already has like collaboration deals with Disney. There needs to be some sort of major gift and collaboration from either Disney or Universal.
Yeah.
Because that would really, really, really amp the football program quite a bit.
Yeah. You know what, James? It would be like Oregon not having Nike sponsorships to offer their players. Like, come on, man, Phil Knight is Nike, right? And so if you're UCF, man, you are Disney World.
Yeah.
And
fans hate it. Like, and there's some like level of sarcasm with it. Like the whole, you just got beat by Mickey Mouse University or whatever. Like there's all of these, like
Mickey Mouse money spend the same.
Exactly.
Right.
If we had to wear like a Disney logo on our jerseys, I don't care if it's if we've got, what's his, Jeremiah Smith at wide receiver. I don't care. Like, sure, I'll wear Disney on my jerseys. Like, if we can just get great players in this organization and we got to put the Disney logo on our jerseys or on our helmets, I don't care. I just know that there's way too many phenomenal businesses in Orlando to not have that many business collaborations.
I don't like talking about it on the show, but for the purpose of this conversation, I'm going to talk about it. Like, I love doing this show. I love UCF. It's no secret to most people I'm an Auburn grad. but I'm a professional, and we run the show, so which is why I don't talk about that much. It has always irked me that the CEO of Apple is an Auburn grad, Tim Cook, and they haven't found a way to get involved with Auburn football more than they have. And so, like, I don't know where Bob Iger went to college. I could Google it right now. I don't care enough to Google it. But God, man, let me tell you something. I'm glad you mentioned world class HRMT program at UCF, world class, and you have businesses in the community that can facilitate some of the best internships in the world to hotel, restaurant, and management students coming out of UCF. Um, I would love to see someone climb the ranks of the Orlando business community at any of the great major corporations, be a UCF grad, and make that connection there where you like, look, man, if Texas Tech can have their billionaire donor come and fund their program, like we need that at UCF. We need that. And look, I know they got oil money down there in Texas. I get it. But UCF is in one of the greatest cities in our free country, Orlando. Like I have one of these days offline, I'm going to tell you my wildest Orlando story from a bowl game I went to way back in 2003. But it is a great city, and this is part of the business side of NIL. And look, man, last time we did something about NIL, I got an email from the university about I wanted to set the record straight on funding, and I appreciate them reaching out. They were very professional. I was very impressed with those guys there in the SIED department. They're world-class guys. So there could be I said that to say there could be a plan in place for this. I would love to see on paper how they're doing the work to reach out. It's great to have an open letter, but I got to believe that there is a process by which they're reaching out to these businesses to say, hey, how can we form a relationship with you so that we can help elevate UCF football? And in turn, we can give something back to your business, right? One of the things that UCF is doing that a lot of schools, I can tell you, aren't doing is that part of the house settlement was making sure that the clearinghouse was in place to make sure there is a real market purpose to the third-party NIL deals done with student athletes. And what do I mean? It means you're no longer allowed to have these businesses. Like if I own a car dealership in Orlando and I say, oh, I'm doing a deal with Davi Belfort, and Davi doesn't show up to anything, but I'm giving him $500,000 a year. No. Davi better be doing appearances. He better be filming commercials in cars. He better actually be doing something if you're giving him that money. And that's the purpose of the clearinghouse, is to make sure that fair market value and real market purpose here. Yeah. And so, you've got a liaison and even bring the ideas to them. You have to bring the ideas to them to say, here's how we think we can best partner with your business. That is a whole department that should be created just for this purpose, where there are 3 or 4 people that said, hey, we're going to go out to the community and we're going to get these businesses involved with UCF football so Scott Frost can have the resources he needs to compete, because it is you're not going to outdevelop the big dogs in college football. You need dogs, man. And those cost you money now. That's it. You can't sit around hoping for Blake Bortles once every 5 years.
Yeah.
Right? Come on, man.
It's gotten to the point where, I think that truthfully, if UCF businesses right now, it's a lot of their business deals that they do are very local to UCF. Some of them are even on campus. There needs to be an expansion to Greater Orlando. And I think that there needs to be some sort of blockbuster deal. And I think there's a comment here that Legoland could work.
I love Legoland.
And I think that's a great idea. Disney, Universal, those type of places offer a phenomenal amount of return on investment, because those places print money. It's not a local business where they're like, oh, we'll give you 20% proceeds on the Taven Jackson action sandwich, like where you might make $100 on the year, and then it's like, oh well, you can order the Dwayne Thomas soup dish,
The
and you
David
make
Jackson action sandwich is
like
is
you
nasty
make,
work.
you make $20, and then by the way, copyright that. That's fine. Trademark.
He's gone now, but okay.
It just doesn't make sense for a lot of these companies, because a lot of them are smaller, a lot of them are local businesses, and so you want there to be support, but there's no room for it in their budget. You need a big company like Disney. The David Jackson action sandwich sounds horrible.
Not gonna lie, dude. That was both awesome and disgusting. Okay.
Yeah, no, it's it would taste a lot like a turnover.
Apple turnover.
Yeah. Yeah, I just think that one of these bigger companies needs to make an investment in UCF football without there being some sort of, and I'm sure that it has been pitched. I'm sure that it has been pitched 100 times. Someone just needs to say yes.
Yeah,
truthfully,
look, this is high level marketing, and that's what college football has turned into. High level marketing. Athletes need to be able to market themselves if they want the deals that they need. I'll close on this because we've been on for 36 minutes. There was an athlete that I was counseling that was upset about his NIL deal, and I told him, I said, man, look at your social media. You don't post anything. You got 13,000 followers, but you don't give your followers any value. When you're headed into the athletic department, take a picture of the outside of the building, post it up, and say, look, about to put in some work today. As an athlete, you have a rare opportunity to grow a following in a vacuum that most people will never, ever have. One of my saddest Twitter stories is my good friend Jason Campbell, quarterback, I think the Browns and the Raiders and a couple other teams. He had a Twitter account with 1 million followers, James, and just deleted it because he didn't like social media. And I was like, Jason, what? That is you need better advisors around you, man. You deleted a Twitter account with 1 million followers. That's just money now. And he works in sports media. So you know how stupid that was? I love Jason to death, but he regrets it. He was like, yeah, man, I wasn't thinking at the time. Those guys have a natural aversion to social media because there's always somebody talking crap about them on social media. And so, but now you have to think like a businessman if you're an athlete. People aren't just going to hand you money for just existing anymore. You have big time players who aren't very marketable. It's crazy. He wasn't like super eloquently spoken, but he was weirdly marketable in his own way. Marshawn Lynch.
Another great example.
Yeah, and I remember him telling a story about how he never spent a dime of his NFL money. He just lived off his endorsement money. So every dime he earned in the NFL, he just put into like an interest savings thing for like however many years he played. And that dude has $1 kajillion right now. But he thinks like a businessman. And, a lot of schools are providing the education to student athletes, but just like schools provide internships for their graduates, UCF football has to kind of help facilitate NIL placement for these athletes with businesses in the community. Now, here's what we learned you can do. Another school who did this. If you facilitate the deal, you can count, even though you're not actually paying that money, you can use that money to count towards current obligations, financial obligations that you have to student athletes, and then pull that money back out of rev share. So you can double it back on to the athlete if you want to, or you can redivert that money to other programs if you need to. So if you committed $1 million to a student athlete, but you find them a $500,000 deal with, I don't know, Joe Schmo's sandwich shop, right? You can take that $500,000 back out your rev share and say, hey, women's basketball, Y'all need some
go.
dogs. That's
Yeah.
life-changing for a lot of women's basketball programs. $500,000 in NIL. Come on, man. So I cover women's basketball a lot. So I can tell you most programs are struggling to get that kind of money to their student athletes. So this could be beneficial in a lot of ways. There are ways to work the system. If UCF facilitates the deal, they can count it without it counting towards their rev share.
Yeah.
Right. It's a smart way to do it. Now, as far as I know, the money just has to be given directly to the athlete for this to work. But I know one school who's doing it, and it to the tune of almost $9 million that they're going to be able to pull back out of their 20.5 and say, all right, now do we need a quarterback? Because now we got easily, I can find you another $2 million to go get a bomb quarterback in the portal.
Jeez.
I love that UCF is playing by the rules, but you got to work the system, James, man.
Yeah.
And so this spring, we started off this segment off talking about what this spring is. I think that that's what the spring game could be. It could be almost an exposition for UCF businesses to come in and see why they need to get involved with UCF athletics. And if you're Scott Frost, that's how you have to be thinking. And if anybody close to Scott Frost isn't already thinking this, we're giving it to you right now. Use the spring game to help connect with these businesses and get them in, invite them, schmooze them, box seat, whatever you got to do. And say, hey, like, you know, some of the biggest donors to some of these P4 programs never even went to the school.
It's just in business owners in the area.
I'm telling you.
Yeah.
I'm telling you. Auburn's Neville Arena, the Nevilles aren't Auburn grads. They gave like $20 million to help build it, and so their name's on the outside. Some people just want to be a part of something. And if you're Scott Frost, show them why they should be a part of you or what you're building. Now, winning helps. Winning helps. So win some football games, use this spring game, get creative, man, and you can get right back in there. I love this discussion. It's one that we're going to continue as the offseason goes on and we see how that money is spent. We'll see how much they spend on a quarterback in the portal. Guys, do us a favor. James, obviously we want to thank you for joining the show. Hit the comments after the video. Let us know what you think about Will Johnson being hired, how many QBs you think UCF is going to take. And then this spring, give us your ideas for what you think, how you think this spring game can actually be used to advance UCF football in today's football climate. We definitely want to hear from you. Guys, thank you so much for listening to this show. For almost 50 people on today, man. We're breaking records here at Locked On UCF. So, look, you got to hit the comments after the video so we can continue to grow these live streams. We'll keep doing it as long as you guys keep watching. You've been doing a great job of doing that. We're going to get out of here. Thank you so much for making Locked On UCF your first listen of every single day. James Duncan, I'm Mike G. We'll be back at you guys tomorrow with more Locked On UCF.